So today we're going to break down a viral political video. What's so interesting about it is how it uses a really powerful rhetorical strategy, creating this super stark, impossible to miss contrast to get its point across. We're going to deconstruct its argument step by step.
Okay, let's just dive right in. The entire argument of this video, literally everything it's trying to say, hangs on this one very provocative statement. This isn't just a catchy title, it's the core thesis. Every single clip we're about to look at is designed to prove this one point, to frame the whole political landscape as a really simple choice between what it calls sane and what it labels as crazy.
So, how does it start building this case? Well, the first major piece of evidence it presents is a classic rhetorical move, juxtaposition. It sets up this direct, side-by-side comparison between the official State of the Union address and a totally separate counter-event that was held to protest it. First up, we get introduced to what a speaker at the counter-event calls the joyful, radical, peaceful resistance, which apparently features something called the Portland Frog Brigade. Now, you've got to notice how the source video is very deliberate here. It picks out the most unconventional moments it can find. A guy in a furry suit, announcements for a bingo game, and prize giveaways. And these clips are then presented as the official alternative to the president's speech. And this is where the argument really starts to crystallize. On one side, you have these very serious national issues from the State of the Union, things like safety and the economy. And on the other side, the activities from that counter-event. By putting these right next to each other, the video is asking you, the viewer, a question without even saying it out loud. Which one of these looks like serious leadership to you? Okay, so let's see how this whole thing builds. It goes from this general contrast in style and tone to a really specific policy debate. The video narrows its focus almost entirely onto one single issue: immigration. It frames this as the central battleground. And you know what? The entire complex policy debate gets boiled down to just this one number, 11 million. The video presents this figure as the one and only priority of its political opponents. It becomes this rhetorical anchor for the rest of the argument. And to really hammer this point home, the video uses this direct quote. They even play the clip twice. The narrator is emphasizing the argument that this single policy, a path to citizenship, isn't just an issue for the other side, it's the primary, all-consuming issue. And this slide really lays out the binary choice the video is creating. It's presenting two agendas that are framed as completely mutually exclusive. On one hand, you've got a path to citizenship. On the other, you have a list of these kitchen table issues. You, the viewer, are basically being asked to pick a side. Which agenda do you care about more? All right, so at this point, the argument kind of kicks it up a notch. It stops being just about having different priorities. Now it's about living in two fundamentally different realities. The source claims that the two sides don't just disagree on things, they actually perceive the exact same event in completely opposite ways. The first example of this perception gap that they show us comes from media commentary. The source highlights a critic on MSNBC who described parts of the president's speech as violence porn, really zeroing in on the graphic language that was used to describe some crimes. But then, the video's narrator immediately jumps in to counter that critique. By asking for context, the narrator reframes those gory details. They're no longer just gratuitous language. They're the unreported reality of the crimes being talked about. It's a really slick rhetorical move, right? It shifts the focus from the words in the speech to the actions of criminals, basically painting the critique as a deliberate attempt to avoid the truth. And they really hammer this perception gap home by showing how differently the two sides viewed the honoring of individuals during the speech. So on the one hand, the source frames it as this solemn celebration of American heroes and victims. But then, in stark contrast, it shows quotes from opponents who allegedly saw that exact same moment as horrific, a joke, and even like an award show. Okay, so this is the crucial point. This is how the video weaves all of these different threads, the contrasting events, the competing policy agendas, and these different perceptions of reality into one final, really powerful message. And there it is. That's the ultimate conclusion. After laying out all this evidence, the source basically declares its case closed. The whole purpose of the video is to get rid of any gray area, to present the political landscape as a simple, undeniable choice between two fundamentally different and completely incompatible visions for the country. So after breaking all of this down, it kind of leaves us with a really critical question to think about. This strategy of creating such a stark us versus them contrast,
It's undeniably effective at firing up a base. But it also makes you wonder what happens to the space for dialogue, for compromise, for finding any kind of common ground when the battle lines are drawn this clearly.